There's no mistake in our reservation for 7 people. I'd appreciate if you could prepare a separate seat for this lady who isn't included in the count. Elizabeth, my husband's mom, often made bold requests, teasing me. But today might be different because I know a secret she's hiding, and I plan to reveal it at our family gathering. I'm Natalie, 28 years old, and I work as a chef. I met my husband George at the restaurant where I work. He runs a long-standing electronics store in the city, passed down through his family. Sadly, his father, who ran the store before him, passed away last year. I grew up in a family passionate about cooking. My parents and brother are all culinary professionals. Surrounded by this environment, I learned a lot about cooking from a young age. Thanks to this and my talent, I graduated top of my class from culinary school. I used to be confident in my cooking skills, but marrying George made me doubt myself. We ended up living with his mom, Elizabeth, after his dad passed away. George wanted to take care of her, so we agreed to live together. I hoped for some time alone with George after our wedding, but living with his parents changed that plan. I knew he might eventually live with them, but not right after getting married. Maybe he didn't want to upset me by mentioning it earlier. Living with Elizabeth wasn't as bad as I thought. She was kind and helped with chores. She even bought me treats from my favorite bakery. But there was one issue. Her cooking was too salty for my taste. She prepared our meals, but they were always too salty. I knew Elizabeth was from the northern region, so I assumed her love for salty food might be typical there. I'd read in magazines and seen on TV that northerners often prefer saltier tastes. However, I knew it wasn't true for everyone, like my colleague at work who's also from the north but likes lighter flavors. Elizabeth's cooking didn't match what I expected. Her dishes were much saltier than what I'd heard or what my colleague liked. Her stew, for example, had such a strong sauce that it overpowered the natural colors of the ingredients. It felt like eating pure sauce sometimes. Elizabeth would encourage me to eat more, saying that if the food wasn't flavorful enough, it wouldn't be satisfying. I'd often wonder if this was the standard taste. Once my husband mentioned that the dish seemed lighter than usual, and Elizabeth said she adjusted it to my liking. But even then, I found it too salty. I couldn't help but think, this is considered light. I was shocked by what happened next. Eating Elizabeth's heavily seasoned food every day seemed to dull my taste buds. I started doubting my ability to taste properly, especially when cooking at work. Luckily, the head chef did the final taste checks, so it didn't affect the dishes much. But it worried me a lot. To deal with Elizabeth's cooking, I started making my own breakfast before she woke up. It helped me keep up at work, but it made her cold towards me. She started ignoring me when I greeted her in the morning. One evening, I asked her opinion on a dish I'd worked hard on. She questioned if I'd seasoned it right, saying cooking basics were important. She added more sauce, saying it needed more flavor. It made me feel like she thought I was being arrogant about my cooking skills. But I was just worried about health issues. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a reason behind Elizabeth's sudden change in behavior. My husband has 2 older sisters who welcomed me warmly into their families from the start of our marriage. They even offered to help if I ever had any problems with their mother. Their support made me feel valued even though we were just getting to know each other. Their husbands were also friendly, which added to the family's warmth. Especially Emily, who has a delightful 5-year-old daughter. We were preparing for her big birthday celebration, and I happily agreed to help with the food. The table was filled with a variety of dishes, each colorful and inviting. Emily praised the spaghetti I made, saying her daughter loved it. Her appreciation made me really happy. She even thanked me for the delicious spaghetti with sparkling eyes. Emily also shared a stew she made, which she was a bit shy about. She encouraged everyone to try it, especially her daughter. Emily's daughter frowned and refused the spicy stew, saying it made her mouth burn. She asked for more water after trying a bit, but her glass emptied quickly. Then she commented that her mom's cooking was usually heavy on seasoning, and today's was even more so. Her mom got angry and stormed off, ending the party abruptly. I regretted offering to help with the cooking, especially since Emily's daughter's comment seemed to upset her mom. It felt unfair for our efforts to be criticized like that. That night, I wanted to apologize to Emily, but I couldn't find the courage. When I finally did, she responded coldly, telling me not to act superior because it wasn't my house. Her response was sharper than I expected. Life became increasingly difficult from the next day onwards. Elizabeth would heavily season the meals I carefully prepared, and on the worst days, she'd even throw them away before finishing them. I turned to my husband for support, but he didn't take my distress seriously. He suggested that maybe I had antagonized her and needed to listen more. It felt like he wasn't understanding my feelings. To add to the strain, despite being married for only half a year, he started coming home late, sometimes not until midnight. He said it was because of work, but he even started missing important family events like Emily's daughter's birthday party. This put a further strain on our marriage. Just when I thought things couldn't get any tougher, Elizabeth had a bad fall down the stairs and seriously hurt her leg. Emily offered to help with her care, but Elizabeth insisted that it was my duty as her daughter-in-law to look after her. After that, my life changed completely. I had to attend to Elizabeth's needs all day, every day, from small tasks to big ones. Even at work, I'd get constant calls from her, disrupting my tasks. At first, my colleagues understood, but eventually, they got frustrated with the interruptions. I ended up resigning from my job. When I told Elizabeth about quitting, she seemed happy about it. Since then, my days have been filled with meeting her spontaneous demands at all hours. It's taken a toll on my mind and body. As my husband's absence at home grew, I couldn't shake my doubts about his excuses for working late. I started considering what our next steps should be. Feeling like I couldn't stand by any longer, I decided it was time to teach both Elizabeth and my husband a lesson. A few days later, during breakfast, I brought up the idea of divorce. They were both shocked by my sudden announcement. My husband questioned why I was bringing it up, reminding me that we were still newlyweds. He denied any suspicion of cheating and seemed hurt by the suggestion. He also pointed out that I rarely came home, and he felt belittled by Elizabeth. He said he couldn't be happy in such a household environment. "I've made my decision," I declared with newfound determination, surprising both of them. My husband quickly apologized, promising to be more attentive to our home life. He even suggested I take a break and go to my parents' house for a while if I needed it. However, he asked if I could still help Elizabeth due to her leg injury. His apology caught me off guard, but I sensed a hint of resentment in his tone. He urged me to reflect on what had happened and suggested we keep trying to live together. He hoped our feelings might change and things could improve. I replied tersely, saying I would think about it. Their smug smiles revealed their shared bond as family. The atmosphere at home improved briefly with my husband coming home earlier, but it didn't last. He started staying out late again, and Elizabeth returned to her cold behavior. Despite her injury, she frequently left the house. When I questioned her actions, I uncovered a shocking truth. My phone rang incessantly one day, with calls from my husband and Elizabeth. They demanded to know why I had left Elizabeth alone. I explained that I was at my parents' house, as we had agreed it would be temporary. But something had gone wrong. Amidst the commotion, I heard Elizabeth's voice in the background. "I won't go back to that house. From now on, all communication should go through lawyers," I stated calmly before hanging up. For the next few days, I enjoyed the peace of my parents' home. They cooked my favorite meals, and I felt grateful for each one. In return, I cooked for them, and when my mother praised my cooking, tears of happiness filled my eyes. During this peaceful time, I got an unexpected message from someone I didn't want to hear from, Elizabeth. She apologized for her past actions and invited me to her upcoming birthday party. I didn't want to go, but the party was at a renowned restaurant, a rare luxury. I decided to attend and convey my intentions. Elizabeth was happier than I expected and shared the details. The day of the party arrived, and the venue was an upscale restaurant near the station. It had become popular among food enthusiasts because of a new chef trained in France. His dishes were acclaimed as authentically French, earning rave reviews from gourmets in the city. Upon arriving at the main entrance of the restaurant, I observed George and Elizabeth awaiting my arrival with what appeared to be a smug expression. The attendees of the party included Emily, her husband, and her children, constituting a small gathering of 8 individuals. Notably, the topic of divorce had not been disclosed to the attendees at this juncture. Shortly thereafter, Elizabeth approached the restaurant staff and requested confirmation of the reservation, which was indicated for 7 individuals. She subsequently requested a separate seat for me, indicating an implicit acknowledgement of my presence. As we settled into our seats and began dining, Elizabeth's comment about the spaghetti tasting like mine warmed my heart. Then, George mentioned how the restaurant's dishes had improved since the new chef arrived, especially recommending a forthcoming meat dish. As we eagerly awaited the arrival of the anticipated meat dish, delicious-smelling plates kept arriving at Emily's table. However, George and Elizabeth hadn't received anything yet. Elizabeth's frustration became apparent as she loudly questioned why their food was taking so long, drawing glances from nearby diners. The waiter apologized, explaining that the chef was preparing something special for them, which was why it was taking longer. He asked for their patience a little longer. Despite Elizabeth's annoyance, there was a flicker of satisfaction on her face, knowing they were receiving special treatment. Soon, footsteps from the kitchen caught their attention. Their expressions froze in surprise as I emerged, dressed in a chef's hat and apron. "Natalie, why are you dressed like that?" Elizabeth questioned, while Emily and her husband seemed to enjoy the surprise. I smiled gently and placed the specially arranged dishes before them. "I've prepared a special menu just for the two of you," I announced as I placed the dishes before Elizabeth and George. Elizabeth's plate held a beautiful black lump adorned with a rich sauce, which I further enhanced with a topping. Seeing Elizabeth's surprised expression brought me satisfaction. For George, I presented a dish adorned with various delicacies, each shining brightly. I also provided a special sauce for him to try. Emily's daughter laughed cheerfully, appearing surprised yet intrigued by the unique service. However, George and Elizabeth reacted with anger. "This is unbelievable. I've never seen such inappropriate service. Call the manager," George demanded. I calmly replied, "I'm the person in charge here. Is there a problem?" Elizabeth joined in, accusing me of allowing disrespectful service and threatening to sue. "Feel free, but we're also considering legal action for the disruption you've caused," I responded firmly. "How dare you?" Elizabeth exclaimed in disbelief. It turned out that they were frequent visitors to the restaurant and were known for their demanding behavior and constant complaints. The staff had already viewed them as problematic customers until now. "Considering our familiar relationship, we've treated you with leniency. But now that Natalie has chosen to distance herself from you too, we will treat you impartially. Is that okay, Natalie?" the person in charge, who turned out to be my brother Peter, asked me. "Of course," I replied. Peter, Elizabeth, and George were utterly stunned to realize that the person in charge of the renowned restaurant was my brother. In reality, the restaurant's success was a result of Peter's diligent management and hard work. They had not been informed of this fact. Despite not attending our wedding due to work commitments, Peter had sent a generous gift. He had never spoken with Elizabeth or George before, but he remembered their faces from pictures he had received from family gatherings he couldn't attend. "I couldn't go to the wedding, so I wanted to say hi when you came to visit, but every time you guys seem too busy with your friends," Elizabeth told George and Emily. They looked surprised. "We didn't know. Can you tell us more?" Emily asked, trying to sound happy, but her eyes showed she was serious. "We actually came here to eat with some store owners from the town's market. It's popular now to eat at these new restaurants," George explained. Just then, a waiter came up. "You forgot this last time you were here," he said, handing Elizabeth a shiny earring. "You often eat here with guys who wear earrings. Isn't that risky?" I was surprised by Emily's question but laughed. "Well, it's not exactly like that. He's secretly dating a woman who works at the flower shop across the street." George looked shocked. "How did you find out?" "A few weeks ago, I felt suspicious and hired a detective. They took photos of him having dinner with her here and even going into a hotel together. To be honest, I don't think it was a good idea for you to marry her. I'm planning to get a divorce. Just be ready for that," George said, speaking openly about divorce for the first time. For me, it wasn't a surprise. I had expected it. Just remember to pay the alimony. "Don't worry. I recently made a big business deal, so I'm financially stable now. I'll happily pay all the alimony," George assured. That reassured me. "Now about you, Elizabeth." Elizabeth, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. She was a regular at this fancy restaurant and known by the staff. "What do you want from me? Since my husband passed away, I don't think anyone can criticize me." But I knew something she didn't. "Actually, I had a detective look into your secrets too. Turns out, you've been in a secret relationship for 5 years. But wait, didn't your husband just pass away a year ago? What's going on?" Emily and her siblings were furious and disappointed. Their father had meant a lot to them, so this news was hard to take. I was surprised too, but when I asked the detective how he knew so much about Elizabeth, I found out that her father had hired the same detective agency before. You deceived him for so long, even while he was still alive. And George, even when you were with Natalie, you were seeing another woman. How could you? Emily and her siblings were furious and disappointed. Their father meant a lot to them, so this news was really tough to handle. The tense atmosphere at our table caught the attention of other diners. We promised to talk about it more at home and ended the dinner. As I left, I thanked the restaurant staff and Peter. A few days later, under Emily and her siblings' stern gaze, George and I started the formal divorce process. Now I'm free. I won't regret anything, no matter what, George said confidently. I never expected this. Even after I told you about my bad leg, I didn't think you'd treat me like this, Elizabeth said, surprised. Her leg had actually healed already, but she had pretended to be in pain to seem better than me. It shocked me again. From now on, both she and my husband will be strangers to me. Even though our marriage ended quickly, I have no regrets. A few days later, when I checked my bank account, I was surprised to find that both my husband's and his mistress's alimony payments had been deposited at the same time. It seemed like my husband covered her share too. With this knowledge, I could finally see them as completely out of my life. Then some interesting news came about my husband and his mistress. He had gotten into debt to pay the big alimony. But soon after we divorced, she dumped him easily. Emily told me that the woman is known in the area for going after married men. After what happened at the restaurant, Peter told us that regular customers were tired of George and Elizabeth's behavior, and they were happy we stood up to them. After that, the restaurant banned them from coming in. Their dishonesty became known in the community. A big contract my husband was bragging about got canceled. His electronics store relied on trust from the locals. But now that trust is gone, running it will be hard. Elizabeth's life got tough too. She was left by her longtime lover, and medical tests showed her unhealthy lifestyle was hurting her health. Her health problems were her own doing, so she didn't get much sympathy. Luckily, I got to go back to the Western-style restaurant where I used to work. Even though they knew about my past, the staff and bosses welcomed me warmly. Emily and her family, including the spaghetti lady, kept coming to the restaurant, which meant a lot to me. They had cut off all ties with George and Elizabeth. Their betrayal, especially after their dad passed away and the truth came out, hurt them deeply and seemed hard to get over. Cooking brings me so much joy. Those moments when I'm happy in the kitchen are the ones I treasure the most. It makes me feel truly blessed.